A woman in a perfectly tailored charcoal business suit walked confidently into Judge Judy's courtroom, her leather portfolio embossed with gold letters spelling out Dr. Rebecca Thornton, Sci.D. Everything about her screamed professional credibility. Her designer glasses, her perfectly styled hair pulled into an elegant bun, her measured steps that suggested years of clinical experience. For 3 years, Dr. Rebecca Thornton had been counseling vulnerable patients struggling with trauma, depression, and anxiety in her pristine suburban Connecticut office. She had collected over $400,000 in therapy fees and insurance payments. She had treated more than 200 desperate people who trusted her with their deepest fears and darkest moments. But what nobody in that packed courtroom knew was that Rebecca Thornton wasn't a doctor at all. She had never attended medical school. She had never earned a psychology degree from any university. She had never completed a single hour of supervised clinical training. Every therapy session she had ever conducted was completely illegal. Every credential hanging on her office wall was purchased from a diploma mill website. And when Judge Judy asked her one simple question about her fake education, the carefully constructed facade that had fooled insurance companies, hospital administrators, and hundreds of vulnerable patients would crumble in exactly 90 seconds. Jennifer Martinez sat trembling in the plaintiff's chair, clutching a thick folder filled with therapy bills and medical documentation that represented 8 months of her life and $22,000 of her family's savings. Jennifer had been seeing Dr. Thornton twice a week following a severe car accident that left her unable to sleep, unable to drive, barely able to leave her house without experiencing crippling panic attacks. She had trusted Rebecca completely, believing she was receiving professional psychological treatment from a licensed expert who could help her heal from the trauma that had destroyed her normal life. Her insurance company had paid out over $22,000 to Rebecca's practice. But Jennifer's condition had only gotten worse under Rebecca's care. The therapy techniques were bizarre and often contradictory. The advice sometimes triggered more panic attacks instead of preventing them. When Rebecca told Jennifer to immediately start driving on highways as exposure therapy, Jennifer had a complete breakdown. Something felt wrong, but Rebecca always had professional-sounding explanations. When Jennifer finally sought a second opinion from a real psychiatrist, the truth began to emerge. Nothing Rebecca had done followed recognized therapeutic protocols. And when the psychiatrist tried to verify Rebecca's credentials in the state medical licensing database, there was absolutely nothing there. Rebecca Thornton had spent 3 years building a completely fake therapy practice, and she had been extraordinarily careful about every detail. Her office looked exactly like a legitimate therapist's space, complete with the comfortable couch, the strategically placed tissue box, the calming artwork, and bookshelves lined with psychology textbooks she'd purchased used from online retailers. She had studied those books extensively, memorizing therapeutic terminology and diagnostic criteria until she could speak the language of psychology convincingly enough to fool even other professionals in the mental health field. Her business cards were printed by the same company that real doctors used. Her billing was set up through legitimate medical coding systems. She even attended professional networking events, boldly introducing herself as a colleague to licensed therapists who never suspected they were talking to a complete fraud. The license number she used to bill insurance companies had been stolen from Dr. Margaret Chen, a real psychologist in California who had retired 5 years earlier. What made Rebecca's deception so dangerous was that she had targeted the most vulnerable patients. People suffering from severe trauma, debilitating anxiety, crushing depression, and overwhelming grief. People who desperately needed real professional help and instead received advice from someone with zero qualifications who was essentially experimenting on their minds. Rebecca had convinced herself that because she had read psychology books and taken some online courses, she was providing legitimate help. She had become so confident in her fake identity that she genuinely believed she could fool anyone, including America's toughest television judge. She walked into that courtroom expecting another easy victory, another situation where her impressive credentials and confident demeanor would convince everyone she was legitimate. But Rebecca had made one fatal miscalculation. She had gotten sloppy about the details of her fabricated background. And she had no idea that Judge Judy Scheindlin had spent the previous night systematically pulling apart every single claim in Rebecca's fake biography. Judge Judy had contacted universities, verified licensing databases, and built an airtight case proving that Rebecca Thornton was a complete imposter. Now all she needed was to get Rebecca to commit to her lies under oath, and then ask the one question that Rebecca couldn't possibly answer correctly. The trap was set perfectly. Before we show you the exact moment when Judge Judy destroys this fake therapist with a single question, smash that like button right now if you believe people who exploit vulnerable patients deserve to face real consequences. Hit subscribe because what you're about to witness is the most satisfying exposure of medical fraud ever caught on camera. The single question that destroys Rebecca's entire fake career is coming up. The Judge Judy courtroom buzzed with its usual electric energy. The audience had settled in, cameras were rolling, and production assistants made their final checks. Judge Judy reviewed her notes one last time, that slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth that regular viewers knew meant someone was about to be absolutely destroyed. Rebecca Thornton sat at the defendant's table, her posture relaxed and confident. She had been through skeptical questioning before from insurance verification departments and suspicious patients. She had always passed. Her story was consistent, her credentials looked legitimate, and her professional knowledge seemed extensive enough to convince anyone she was the real deal. Judge Judy looked up from her bench with characteristic directness. "Ms. Thornton, you're being sued by Jennifer Martinez for $72,000. She claims you defrauded her by providing therapy services without proper credentials and made her condition worse with dangerous treatment methods. How do you respond?" Rebecca's answer was smooth and practiced, delivered with the confident authority of someone who had fooled hundreds of people. "Your Honor, these accusations are completely baseless and frankly insulting to my professional reputation. I am a licensed clinical psychologist with extensive training and 3 years of successful practice. Ms. Martinez was a challenging patient who refused to properly engage with evidence-based therapeutic protocols. She's now attempting to blame me for her own lack of commitment to the difficult work required for genuine psychological healing." The language was perfect. Evidence-based protocols. Psychological healing. Patient resistance. All the right buzzwords that real therapists used. "Tell me about your educational background, Ms. Thornton." Judge Judy's voice was calm, giving no indication that she already knew every word about to come out of Rebecca's mouth was a lie. Rebecca smiled with practiced confidence. "I completed my undergraduate degree in psychology at Yale University, graduating magna cum laude in 2012. I then pursued my doctoral degree at Stanford University, specializing in trauma-informed cognitive behavioral therapy. I completed my clinical internship at McLean Hospital near Boston, which is affiliated with Harvard Medical School and is one of the premier psychiatric facilities in the country. After completing my doctorate and obtaining my clinical license, I established my private practice in Connecticut where I've been successfully treating patients for 3 years. It was flawless. Specific dates, prestigious institutions, appropriate specializations. Everything sounded completely legitimate. The audience members nodded along, impressed. Judge Judy made notes slowly, her poker face revealing nothing about the fact that she had spent hours proving every single word Rebecca just said was fiction. "And this license allows you to bill insurance companies?" "Yes, Your Honor, absolutely. I'm fully licensed and credentialed with all major insurance providers. I follow all proper protocols for documentation and treatment planning." Judge Judy turned to Jennifer Martinez. "Ms. Martinez, tell me what happened during your treatment." Jennifer's voice trembled with emotion. "Your Honor, I was in a terrible car accident that left me with severe PTSD. I couldn't sleep, couldn't drive, could barely function. Dr. Thornton seemed so professional. I trusted her completely. But nothing she did helped me. The techniques she taught me for panic attacks made them worse. She told me to force myself to drive on highways immediately. When I tried, I had a complete breakdown. I told her I was having thoughts of harming myself and she just told me to journal about it instead of getting proper crisis intervention. Rebecca maintained her professional composure, shaking her head slightly as if dealing with a difficult patient. Ms. Thornton, Ms. Martinez claims your techniques were harmful. How do you respond? Rebecca's tone was clinical and dismissive. Your Honor, exposure therapy is a scientifically validated treatment for PTSD. What Ms. Martinez experienced is common. Patients often resist confronting their fears because avoidance feels safer. Her negative reaction doesn't mean the treatment was wrong. It means she wasn't ready to do the difficult work required for recovery. As mental health professionals, we sometimes have to push patients beyond their comfort zones. It sounded legitimate. Exposure therapy was real. Rebecca was using enough actual psychology to make her fraud plausible. She leaned back, adopting the relaxed posture of an expert. Judge Judy asked more questions about Rebecca's practice, treatment methods, and patient outcomes. Rebecca answered each one with smooth confidence, speaking in therapeutic terminology, describing her clinical approach with authority. She had no awareness that she was walking into a trap about to destroy her entire fake identity. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, her eyes locked on Rebecca with laser intensity. The courtroom had gone completely silent, that electric tension when everyone senses something important is about to happen. You've told this court that you earned your doctorate in psychology from Stanford University, correct? Yes, Your Honor, Rebecca confirmed, still confident. And this doctorate qualifies you to provide clinical psychological services and bill insurance companies as a licensed provider? Yes, Your Honor, that's correct. Rebecca had answered these types of verification questions hundreds of times before from insurance companies and suspicious patients. This felt routine. Judge Judy paused for just a moment, letting the tension build. Then she asked the question that would destroy everything. Ms. Thornton, in what year did Stanford University award you your Psi.D. degree? It seemed like such a simple, innocent question. Just asking for clarification about when Rebecca graduated. But it was actually the perfect trap. A real graduate would know their graduation year instantly, as automatically as knowing their own birthday. For someone with a fake credential, this question was a landmine. Rebecca had researched Stanford's psychology program enough to sound credible, but she hadn't memorized every detail of her fake timeline. For the first time in the entire hearing, Rebecca hesitated. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. Her eyes flickered to the side, the universal tell of someone trying to fabricate an answer. The pause was only 2 seconds, but in the intense silence, those 2 seconds felt like an eternity. Everyone noticed. The confidence that had carried Rebecca through the entire case had suddenly evaporated. I'm sorry, Your Honor, Rebecca tried to recover, her voice lacking its earlier authority. Could you repeat the question? Judge Judy's expression didn't change. In what year did Stanford award you your doctorate degree? This should be very simple for you to answer, Ms. Thornton. Rebecca's brain was racing. She had to give an answer, but she didn't know what year would sound plausible. Too recent and her supposed 3 years of practice wouldn't make sense. Too old and other details might not line up. She was trapped. It was in 2018, Rebecca finally answered, her voice uncertain. Judge Judy made a note. 2018. You're certain about that? Yes, Your Honor, Rebecca said, trying to inject confidence back but failing. So you completed your doctorate in 2018, then completed your internship, obtained your license, and established your practice by 2021? Rebecca nodded, seeing the problem but unable to escape. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Judy picked up a document from her bench. That's very interesting, Ms. Thornton, because Stanford University has no record of awarding any doctorate degree in psychology to anyone named Rebecca Thornton in 2018. Or 2017. Or 2019. Or any year. Stanford has no record of you ever attending their university in any capacity whatsoever. The courtroom erupted in gasps. The color drained from Rebecca's face. The professional composure, the confident demeanor, All of it disappeared instantly, replaced by the wide-eyed look of someone whose entire world was collapsing. "That's not possible," Rebecca stammered, her hands beginning to shake. "There must be some administrative error." Judge Judy's voice cut through the air like a scalpel. "There's no error, Miss Thornton. Because you never attended Stanford. You never attended any accredited psychology program. You don't have a doctorate. You don't have any degree in psychology whatsoever." Rebecca's hands gripped the edge of the table. "And that license number you've been using to bill insurance companies? It belongs to Dr. Margaret Chen, a licensed psychologist in California who retired 5 years ago. You stole her credentials and used them to commit insurance fraud for 3 years." The courtroom was in chaos. Jennifer Martinez had tears streaming down her face, tears of vindication mixed with horror. Rebecca looked like she might be sick. Judge Judy wasn't finished. "Let's go through your entire fake biography. You claim to have graduated from Yale. Yale has no record of you. Your internship at McLean Hospital never happened. I spoke with their director. They've never heard of you." Each revelation was another hammer blow. Rebecca was hunched over, her suit wrinkled, her perfect hair coming undone. "For 3 years," Judge Judy's voice rose with anger, "you've been counseling vulnerable patients suffering from trauma, depression, and anxiety. You've provided advice that could have been fatal. You've collected over $400,000. All while having zero qualification. You told Jennifer to use exposure therapy that could have killed someone with untreated PTSD. You came into this courtroom prepared to lie under oath." Rebecca was now crying, mascara running, hands trembling. The fake therapist who had fooled hundreds had been completely exposed by one simple question she couldn't answer. What you're witnessing right now is justice being delivered to someone who spent 3 years exploiting vulnerable people at their lowest moments. If you believe Rebecca deserves everything that's coming to her, smash that like button and comment "Justice served" below. Subscribe so you never miss these moments when frauds face real accountability. Share this video with anyone who's ever wondered if their therapist is legitimate. Judge Judy's final judgment was swift and devastating. "Ms. Thornton, in my decades on the bench, I have never encountered fraud this calculated, this dangerous, or this morally bankrupt. You targeted people suffering from severe trauma, people who desperately needed real help, and you experimented on them while collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm ruling in favor of Jennifer Martinez. You will pay her $22,000 for the fraudulent fees. You will pay her $50,000 in emotional damages for making her condition worse and putting her life at risk. And you will pay her $25,000 in punitive damages because your conduct was so egregious." The total was $97,000. More than Jennifer had even asked for. "I'm also personally notifying the Connecticut Attorney General's office with complete documentation of your fraud. I'm sending them evidence of your stolen license number, your fake credentials, and your admission under oath that you practiced psychology without any qualifications. You're looking at multiple felony charges. Insurance fraud, identity theft, practicing medicine without a license. My estimate is 15 to 20 years in federal prison if prosecutors pursue maximum penalties." The number hung in the air. Rebecca's crying became wails. "And when this episode airs, I'm sending copies to every insurance company you defrauded. They will sue you for every penny of the $400,000 you stole." The gavel came down. "We're adjourned." The episode aired 3 weeks later and immediately became the most viral Judge Judy moment of the season. Within 24 hours, clips had been viewed over 30 million times. The moment when Rebecca hesitated before answering became an instant meme. The shot of her face when Judge Judy revealed Stanford had no record went viral with over 50 million views. Fake therapist exposed trended worldwide for 2 days. Judge Judy destroys fraud reached #1 trending. Psychology Today published an article about unlicensed practitioners using Rebecca's case. News outlets covered the story. Mental health advocates praised Judge Judy for exposing fraud that endangered vulnerable patients. Judge Judy sent documentation to the Connecticut Attorney General within 24 hours. The AG's office launched an immediate criminal investigation. FBI agents joined when the insurance fraud scope became clear. Rebecca's office was raided. Investigators seized fake diplomas, computer records, patient files. Once the episode went viral, Rebecca's other patients came forward. The 200 patients began sharing their stories. Many described treatment that made conditions worse. One woman said Rebecca told her to stop prescribed antidepressants, causing severe depression. Another described exposure therapy triggering breakdown requiring hospitalization. 6 weeks later, federal prosecutors filed charges. 47 counts including wire fraud, mail fraud, identity theft, practicing psychology without a license. Rebecca faced up to 85 years if convicted on all charges. Insurance companies filed civil lawsuits totaling over $800,000. Her house went into foreclosure. Bank accounts frozen. Everything gained from fraud was systematically taken away. Her trial began 8 months later. Prosecutors played the Judge Judy video showing Rebecca lying under oath. Expert witnesses analyzed her methods and found them actively harmful. Jennifer testified about how only real therapy helped her heal. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated less than 4 hours. Guilty on 45 out of 47 counts. At sentencing, the judge was unsparing. Ms. Thornton, you exploited people at their most vulnerable. You collected money fraudulently. You potentially caused serious psychological harm. The sentence was 12 years in federal prison, 5 years supervised release, plus full restitution of over $400,000. Rebecca was 34. She would be 46 when released. Her entire adult life derailed by her decision to fake credentials and exploit vulnerable people. Rebecca Thornton's case became one of the most famous examples of credential fraud in American history. Law schools use it to teach about fraud. Psychology programs use it to emphasize ethics. The Judge Judy clip is shown in graduate programs nationwide. Jennifer Martinez fully recovered and became an advocate for mental health consumer protection. She created a website helping people verify therapist credentials and has helped hundreds avoid fake practitioners. Rebecca's story serves as a powerful warning. She thought she could fake her way through life using impressive words and official-looking paperwork. For 3 years it worked. But 1 hour in Judge Judy's courtroom destroyed everything. One simple question exposed her completely. In what year did Stanford University award you your Psi.D. degree? Such a simple question. Such a devastating answer. Rebecca's 2-second hesitation told Judge Judy everything. The wrong year confirmed it. From that moment, her entire fake identity collapsed. That's the power of truth meeting fraud. That's why professional credentials matter. That's why you should verify anyone treating your mental health. Rebecca learned the hardest lesson. When you fake credentials and exploit vulnerable people, eventually you'll encounter someone who does their homework and asks the right questions. Judge Judy did exactly that, and 3 years of fraud collapsed in 90 seconds. Sometimes justice takes years. Sometimes it's as simple as asking one perfect question and watching a liar's world end. If this restored your faith that frauds face consequences, hit subscribe for more moments where entitled criminals meet real accountability. Remember to always verify credentials, ask questions, and never trust anyone who hesitates on basic facts about their education. Justice was served. Rebecca paid the price. And vulnerable patients are safer because one judge asked one perfect question at exactly the right moment.